Before the winter of 1978 and 79, Britain was, well, Britain. The end of the 70s was a grey, overcast affair. People huddled in their coats, collars up against the wind, muttering about the chill. It was cold, but it was a familiar cold. It was the kind of cold that made you sigh and pull your scarf a bit tighter, not the kind that made you panic. Nobody had any idea what was about to happen. This wasn't just another winter. It was the prelude to something the country hadn't seen in a generation. Everyone was just pretending it was all very bracing. Then, one evening, it began. The first flakes of snow started to fall, drifting down lazily in the orange glow of the streetlights. It looked harmless, almost picturesque. People glanced out of their windows, smiled, and thought, "Oh, how lovely, a bit of snow for Christmas." We always underestimate the weather in Britain. It's a national tradition. We see a few flakes and assume it'll be gone by morning. But this wasn't just a few flakes. This was the opening act of a storm that would bring the entire country to a standstill. That night, Britain went to sleep optimistic, completely unaware that the world outside was being silently buried. The morning after was defined by a single, profound sensation: silence. The usual rumble of early morning traffic was gone, replaced by a thick, muffled quiet. People woke up, looked out of their windows, and just stared. The cars were gone, vanished under huge, soft mounds of white. The roads, the pavements, the garden fences, they were all erased, smoothed over into one continuous, rolling landscape of snow. The entire country was surprised. Not just inconvenienced, but emotionally stunned. It was as if the world you knew had been switched off overnight and replaced with a silent, white alternative. Very quickly, it became clear that nothing was moving. Transport didn't just struggle, it gave up completely. Buses were abandoned mid-route, becoming instant, frosty monuments to the storm. Trains became a theoretical concept, something you heard about on the radio but couldn't actually see or use. Cars were left exactly where they died, their owners trudging home through knee-deep drifts. There was no breakdown service coming to the rescue. There was no grand plan to clear the roads. There was just a quiet, collective acceptance that, for now, nobody was going anywhere. And what about school? Well, school was cancelled instantly. There were no frantic text messages from the head teacher, no updates on a school website, because those things didn't exist. There wasn't even a formal announcement on the local radio in most places. Parents simply looked out of the window at the 3-foot drifts, looked at their children, and said nothing. It was a silent, mutual understanding. Education was paused, but you could argue it was done responsibly. The greatest lesson that day was in physics. Specifically, the impossibility of getting a small child through a giant snowdrift. Yet, amidst the chaos and the collapse of infrastructure, a British miracle occurred. The milk, somehow, still arrived. The army might have been on standby. The roads were officially impassable, and the entire transport network was frozen solid. But the milkman, that unstoppable force of nature, completed his rounds. You'd open your front door to a wall of snow and find 2 pristine bottles of milk sitting there, half buried, a testament to a sense of duty that defied logic and meteorology. It proved a fundamental British truth: society can collapse, but dairy does not. With the country frozen, fashion took a backseat to pure survival. Style went out the window, replaced by a desperate, frantic layering. People wore vests, then shirts, then to jumpers, then a cardigan, and finally a giant coat. Scarves weren't just worn, they were wrapped with strategic intent, covering every last inch of exposed skin. Everyone ended up shaped like a duvet with legs. You didn't dress to look good. You didn't even dress for comfort. you dressed to continue existing. It was the peak of functional, if not fashionable, winter wear. The next stage was the quiet, polite panic that set in at the local shops. Once people realized this wasn't a one-day event, a silent, orderly rush began. Bread vanished from the shelves within hours. Tins of soup became a prized commodity. The corner shop owner would start rationing milk with the solemn authority of a wartime general. You knew, somewhere, there was a person with a cupboard now filled with enough tins of baked beans to last until spring. We don't riot in Britain. We panic politely, forming a neat queue while quietly hoarding essentials. And what about life at home? This was an era before central heating was standard in every house. Most homes had one warm room, usually the living room, with a gas fire or, if you were lucky, a coal fire. The rest of the house was an Arctic wasteland. Doors to other rooms were kept shut like airlocks on a spaceship to keep the precious heat from escaping. Going to the bathroom was an expedition that required mental preparation. The house wasn't cold, it was selectively warm. Families would huddle together in that one room, a small island of warmth in a sea of freezing stillness. Entertainment, by today's standards, was beautifully basic. There was no internet to scroll through, no 24-hour news to feed your anxiety. Instead, you had the radio, with a calm voice giving occasional, and often vague, weather updates. When the power flickered and died, out came the candles and the board games. Families who hadn't spoken properly in months suddenly found themselves locked in aggressive, high-stakes games of Scrabble and Monopoly by candlelight. You didn't doom-scroll the news. You argued ferociously over whether "za" was a real word. It was a different kind of connection. But for one group, this wasn't a crisis. It was paradise. For children, the great snow was the greatest adventure of their lives. This wasn't the usual inch of slush that melted by lunchtime. This was proper, deep snow. Snow you could build with. Kids dug tunnels and forts, creating entire subterranean worlds in their back gardens. Sledges were crafted from anything available: baking trays, flattened cardboard boxes, even old fertilizer bags. Health and safety, as a concept, seemed to have taken the winter off. It was a time of pure, unadulterated, and slightly dangerous fun. And then, as slowly as it arrived, it began to leave. The thaw was a gradual, messy process. The pristine white landscapes gave way to a world of grey slush and mud. The silence was broken by the sound of dripping water and the eventual, hesitant return of traffic. The buried cars reappeared, looking damp and sorry for themselves. Life just resumed. There was no national debrief, no discussion about what we'd learned or how we could prepare for the next one. The snow melted, and everyone just carried on. The Great Snow of 1978 to 79, Britain froze. And then, without any fuss, it just carried on. Thank you for watching. If you remember this winter, share your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into the past.